I think only the very, very keen students are here today. Tomorrow being a 4-year holiday, others have gone on trips, I guess. I was also cursing, my God, why am I having classes today? Can't go anywhere when you have a long weekend. Nevertheless, for the enthusiastic students who are here today, today is my last session for the 3 that I'm doing, and a very important one to talk about the importance of using performance measures, right? Why are we measuring performance? Why are we measuring performance? Why are we measuring performance? Why do we have to do that? Human beings are incorrigible lots, right? So they don't, if you don't track, you want to improve something, you want to measure it. Otherwise, you don't know where you stand. That's the problem, right? So otherwise, you're blindly doing things, you don't know where you want to go. Otherwise, like Alice in Wonderland, any road will get you there. So it's very important that we track and we have clear-cut performance measures that we identify for the company, and we clearly specify who should be responsible to do what so that everyone knows their role. I mean, we all have our job descriptions, but sometimes it's merely confined to a piece of paper. We don't even look at it. We only look at it, especially when you're applying for a job. Part of the job description is in the advertisement, right? And then closer to your performance appraisal, you look at it and see whether whatever the deliverables you're looking at it. But many of us sometimes don't pay much attention to that. So if you know that there is some target to achieve, we are very, very focused about it, because our performance at the end of the year increment or bonus, if you're getting from the company, is dependent on your target achievement, right? So it affects the behavior of managers and employees. We know as human beings are motivated for various things, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, different levels of need status. So at different levels, you have certain expectations. Money is certainly one of those expectations. So we need to be really understanding what ticks people in the organization. And then accordingly, you should play for it, right? And also, performance measures must be tailored to fit company's mission. You cannot arbitrarily pick things from there and just do things, because it stems from the company's vision and mission, right? So company has a vision and a mission, and we have to, actually operationalize the vision and mission. Otherwise, it's confined to a nicely framed kind of a photograph kind of thing, or only when somebody auditors come and ask a question, you try to memorize it. But the real organizations who really live the vision and mission and purpose-driven organization really make your vision and mission simplified so that it understands its day-to-day way of working, so that it's easy for people to remember. If I ask from you, what is the vision of the company or mission, I won't do that and embarrass you, but I know many of you don't remember that. And I recently did a session for one of the companies, top companies here at PIM, Executive Development Program, and many of them couldn't say that. I mean, we forget, we don't know. So that may be why it has to be simplified. And if you guys don't understand, how can you expect the operational level people or the workforce to remember that? So it has to be really cascade to the lowest level. Then only you will get the performance, because if you don't know how to operationalize, otherwise it will be just sitting up there, like 30, 40,000 altitude stuff that is in the vision mission has to get into the ground level. Everybody should have the line of sight. Can you tell me what is line of sight? Line of sight. What is line of sight? English meaning. You must have the what? Visibility. So in an organization, when you say line of sight, I don't like red, right? Let's say this is the organization hierarchy. You have CEO or maybe chairman and the board on top, right? So different levels in the organization. So these are operational level people, right? So everybody should know. So you have the vision, mission, all of that. So they said that and get inputs from everybody. But everyone must know what you say here, how am I contributing? If you don't have that line of sight, what is it that you need to do? What is the button that you need to press in order for you to achieve that? Or maybe you might say, I want to double my business turnover. I want to increase my margins or the profits by 10% or whatever. Or like that, you will say, I want to increase my market share by so much. So like that, you will have targets. But an ordinary factory worker or a salesperson at the ground level, how would they know what is it that I need to do in order to do that? So you need to break those top KPIs into functional KPIs within the function to different levels. Finally, the frontliners who are driving the business and doing day-to-day things which will make that big ambition happen has to know why what you're doing that will enable the company to achieve that. When you clearly communicate that to everybody, only there is commitment. And you need to spend a lot of time to do that, right? Many companies don't do that. So when you spend a lot of time and explain, I feel that, oh, I am doing something. It's not the salespeople who will always getting incentivized or production people always getting incentivized. Everyone has to play like a team. Chain is as weak as the strongest, weakest link, strong as the weakest link. So if one part is weak, the whole company cannot go. It's like a relay. If one person doesn't hand over the baton properly to the next person, you can't win the race. So similarly, in a company also like that, every individual has a role to play, although you may not realize there are good performers, bad performers, mediocre performers. But whatever it is, you can't have perfect human beings. Everyone has some strength, and you must accept that. It's just that some people have not realized their true potential than high performers. So the role of HR is and the line manager is to ensure that you get that hidden potential in the individual and put that person into the right job where he is excelling or he or she is excelling. But this doesn't happen because it involves a lot of time. Line managers have many other responsibilities. Managing people is the least priority they actually sometimes spend on. And I know most companies had to really hold a gun at you and say, please complete your performance development plan for your team. I mean, few company boards, I know how HR is not getting any, they have deadlines and deadlines and deadlines. They don't do it. I know in one company, they put everybody into one hall and say, please finish everything today, like that. At least you have to use the stick approach. Others, it will not happen. Sometimes you might do it like a real alukade padu kunanage, but you can't do like that. But I'm saying you need to make sure that you really put your heart and soul to really talk to people because they're waiting to get your feedback, right? And would you want your boss to just give you like a shoddy feedback to you? You expect them to understand what have I done well? What are the areas for improvement? And at least once a year, you should properly get that feedback. Ideally, you should do quarterly giving feedback, informal feedback, and then biannually, and then you do the formal annual thing. But all this can be done if all of you performing very well and we have clear targets set. And if you don't have proper targets set, you can't get commitment from people, and you don't have line of sight. They don't know what is it that I need to do in order to achieve these targets for the company. And therefore, you will not be able to achieve the company's vision and mission. Very important. So I would urge all of you as line managers, you are successful if your team is successful. So spend a bit of time to articulate and clearly tell them, this is what you need to do. What are the things that you expect from them to do? Don't tell them how to do it. That's their job. That's their trained job. That's their paid to do the job. But your role is to guide them if they run into problems, if they don't have any solutions. So we need to be clearly articulating what is it that, so the target should be really smart, right? You know what SMART is, objective. So S is for what? Specific, measurable, A, achievable. Some people say aspirational. If you make it too aspirational also, they will try to go to the moon, but then you will lose steam and then you will run out of all your steam and then you will lose your energy. So you can you should not make it very easy, achievable meaning easy target, but you must stretch it a bit, but not really unattainable, right? Very important. And R is what? Realistic. It has to be realistic. If you can't achieve it, you can't expect your team to do that. You just get in. So sometimes when I do set the paper, I try to see whether I can do it in half an hour. I mean, I know the subject, so I can do it, but at least I see whether I give it to somebody and see whether you can do that. And then at least I'm not trying to make your life miserable. I want you all to learn. So that kind of a thing is what you need to do as a line manager, right? So very important, the number 2 point there. If it's not aligned, you can't achieve the company targets. So the third point, can you give me an example? Over-reliance of a single measure might be detrimental to company's long-term survival. Give me an example. Any area, any area. Think of any area and tell me you only look at one aspect, but you are losing out on the other area. Yeah? Some of you, I know the names, so I might call the name. Yeah, so please. Yeah, just I mean, so many examples are there. If you are in sales, if you only check something, anybody from sales? No, nobody. Ah, you're there, at least, bold guy. Tell me. If you only look at one aspect of sales, what will it not give you? If you're in sales, should you only look at your turnover? Or should you look at only number of units you sold for a given day? I'm just making your life easier. What is it that you need to do to see whether you have done the right thing? Of course, if that company has a properly articulated target, then you will know what to do. But I'm assuming if you're only looking one aspect, it will be detrimental. What do you mean by how you sold? Okay, so you also get feedback. Okay. Yeah, don't think very complicated way, right? Go into that space. I'm just asking a parameter. Okay, you agreed, no? You agree with the customer parameter, no? So first of all, you have certain basic things you need to agree, right? Once you agree, now I'm just talking from the company point of view. If you're the chairman of the company and a sales guy will say, I have sold X many number of units, or I've actually got X many number of customers. Will it only tell you whether you're achieving the company target? That's my question. What is it that not giving? Think in a very simple manner that, yeah, good point. So now you can go to the market and I will sell to you. But whether that customer is going to buy a lot of things from you, or whether what kind of value that customer is creating for the company, contribution, all that is important. Or you go and sell anything to achieve your target. You have product portfolio, some are high margin, some are low margin. They will go and whack, salespeople will go and whack the easiest ones to achieve the target if you don't have clear target guidelines in the company. So what's important is you need to know the product portfolio, the entire portfolio that you are having a target. So when you are setting up target, you need to tell them, otherwise they'll go and say, I remember now in Unilever, like our biggest brand was Sunlight. Like that time, like during my time in 2012, 10, 12 kind of time, like 6 billion rupees. So single brand giving us 6 billion, sometimes it's a turnover of a company. Now it must be much more than that. But I'm saying, now if easy to sell Sunlight, without betting and close your eyes, people will buy lorry loads of Sunlight. So the easiest thing these guys go and say, Sunlight, you don't get that much of margin. But there are high value personal care products, very difficult to sell. So they won't sell that. So some of the brand managers are crying. Some of the company product, margins will go for a toss because you have certain expected margin overall. So like that, of course, later on companies become wiser and you have certain targets and all of that. I'm saying if blindly company agrees only on that aspect, then you have a problem. Another thing is you sell, but you don't. So many debtors, you don't collect money. That's also a problem. So what I'm trying to say is if you are focusing only on one without knowing the true picture, you will have a problem, right? You can keep selling. You can be very happy, but are you collecting money? What is the contribution, right? All that is important. Whether are they happy? So there should be parameters to guide you on the overall picture. So you need to know a multiple KPIs, not like extensive one because you won't be able to track it, but you need to have a reasonable number which will tell you whether you're moving in the right direction. Very, very important, right? Are you clear? If you're in HR, very often, how many are in HR? Raise your hands, please. Yeah, okay. So one of the KPIs for you guys is on training, no? Learning and development, right? So if you say number of training hours per person, whatever hours you track, no, there is one KPI, right? Now now I know some of the company HR people, when they don't achieve the target towards the end, they will send many people on presentation skills, time management skills, all of that generic skills so that you achieve your target. I'm not saying you're doing that, but some companies do that because purely to achieve the target. But what is important is you need to understand what is the skill gap each functional employees have, and you need to ensure those targeted skill gaps are bridged through training. So you need to blindly, okay, you need certain base skills that you need to learn. But if you look at the split, it's like the margins. You have high margin, low margin products. I mean, whether you are selling the entire portfolio or only focusing on one, which is easy, or similarly, you don't in a focused manner do this skill gap analysis and do the bridging through training is one aspect only. You have other aspects. You have 70, 20, 10. You know that? Have you all done HR subject here? Yeah. So apart from her, tell me 70, 20, 10 rule is what? Training is what percentage? If you have 100%, what percentage is training? Yeah. I'll ask from you later. But rest of the others. Most of us said, oh, they don't send us on training. No, man, I have never gone on a training. You think learning happens only through training in a class. It's wrong. 70% is what? Yeah, on the job. Very important. Provided that you have a nice slide manager who's supportive and guiding you. 20% is what? Yeah, tell me. 20% is what? Special projects or under coaching under somebody like that. The real learning, I mean, the so-called training in a classroom, only 10%. So if you really want to bridge your skill gap, you have to get in and dirty your hands and do the job. I remember, I mean, I'm an engineer, so I didn't practice as an engineer, but my specialization was engineering. So when I joined as a management trainee to Unilever, so my first job was in quality assurance because my MSc was in food process engineering. So company later on put me to, so as a trainee, not trainee, R&D manager first, right? So then hoping that the lady who was going to retire, I will take over from her about in 2 years' time. So then my technical director at that time, there was a vacancy in quality assurance department. In 8 months, I was pulled out from there and put into quality, right? Now, why am I saying this to you? Yes, hands on. Okay, so then I did that area. So all that, and then I headed R&D and quality, and I was sent overseas to get exposure. Considering those days, I was a high flyer at that time. When I came back to the company. Now, by that time, I have achieved the topmost position in R&D and quality. In both home care, food and personal care, the entire company portfolio. So I'm managing the entire country quality factories and all of that. So when I came back, I didn't have a job to come to because I've already reached the top. So company was trying to, because sometimes if you're a high performer, they will give you exposure in many areas so that you will be better equipped to take on a higher role at a board level. So I didn't know at that time. So when I came back, my marketing director was saying, why don't you join marketing? I said, no, I hate marketing. I don't like. And then I had an expat supply chain director. So he said, Gani, why don't you come to supply chain? I didn't know head or tail of supply chain, right? I didn't even know what Incoterm, like C and F. You know, when you're procuring things, you need to, know the Incoterm, right? Buying is on a FOB basis. So I didn't know anything. So now I can't say no to everything, no. So I thought, okay, they are offering this to me because I have some potential. So let me get in there. Now, I didn't know anything. My first job was raw material procurement manager. Company had a huge spend on procurement. I can't afford to miss a shipment because the whole production will come to a standstill, and I don't know anything about procurement or anything in ABC. So I had to spend long hours with the junior most person in the company. And luckily, some people were so jealous because this lady is coming and parachuting and trying to get my job. And I'm, some senior people who have been in the company for 20, 30 years now not supporting me. So I had to go down to the, luckily for me, I mean, I'm good with people. So the shipping person, the clerk and everybody was spending a lot of time, and I somehow learned it and picked up. So what's important is, what I'm trying to say is, I was heading a particular department, but I am now put into another area as a similar head, but I don't know head or tail. But for me to run the department, I must know the ground situation. Otherwise, they'll come and tell all kinds of stories and I won't be able to understand, right? So you need to dirt your hands. Otherwise, you won't know. So very important. On the job training is very important. Then they can't come and say all kinds of things because you understand the pulse of the people and the difficulties they go through, right? Very important. So on the job is very important, and why I mention this here is, if you don't have proper KPIs, performance measures, you will have an issue in the company, right? You will not be able to achieve the target. So, okay, let me come back quickly on the correct characteristics of an effective performance measures. You cannot just have it at the beginning of the year in the budgeting process and strategy development stage and then ignore. You have to review and adjust it as and when the situation in the market changes, not on a daily basis. In the current situation like we are in now, market is changing rapidly. Now you can't predict for 5-10 years now. You have to look at a very short time horizon. Planning has to happen like that. So very important. You need to really review it and adjust if it is continuously happening, and you need to really reflect that in your company plan, right? And as I mentioned to you, it has to be linked to the high level strategies and objectives. And it must be linked to other support function. Now, if you're in the mainstream, like, marketing and sales and supply chain, but there are other supporting functions like HR, IT, finance, right? They are enabling functions. But how do you also link up? Because they also must understand the language that you speak. So it has to be linked up. And accountability is very, very important. In anything that you do, you have to ensure the 3 W's. What is 3 W? If you want to get accountability from everybody, you have to be very clear. What is it that you need to do? Who should be doing that? When you will complete it. If you don't keep people clearly informed, what is it? What is the action? It has to be smart, clearly identified, not a waffly statement. It has to be clear. Now, in any meeting that I go to, and I don't have long minutes, any meeting, it should be action oriented. If you want to review, spend a little bit of time only to think and clearly tell people, this is what I want. If you come outside of this, we won't put that as an action. So clearly identify what is it you need to do. People understand that, who should be doing it, and when you should be completing. And you should have a traffic light, green, amber, red. And when you come to the meeting, if it's green, you well done, pat on the back. Don't discuss too much about it. What you can't do, you need to support them to really bridge the gap and do that. Pending ones, okay, amber ones, that it is on track, and if there is an issue, you give a helping hand. But the red ones mean they don't know, they haven't progressed, meaning they haven't got an idea or they need support from you, and you need to really look at it. Again, I will tell you the story. I did a World Bank project in 2016 to improve the health supply chain in the medical supplies division for 18 non-communicable disease pharmaceutical items. Now, very difficult to get information from these guys. So I had to get into the director general level to get a letter. I had a team of 5 people, 1 doctor and all, luckily. So we went into this place and they have a meeting. I'm just trying to show you the review mechanism they have. I'm sure they must have improved now. But You go to the meeting, they have every Wednesday a meeting starting at 2 o'clock. Everybody should come to that meeting and tell. So there are pharmaceutical corporation, health ministry, procurement division, different people come for that meeting for different items. So this is pharmaceutical meeting. And they just come to the meeting only and check when is the shipment coming. They're calling the supplier. At the meeting only, they are now checking. Minutes are very long. Nobody even can't figure out what it is. So everybody is coming at different times and you're not really prepared for the meeting. No point. And that meeting goes on till about 9, 10. 2 o'clock meeting, 9, 10. So how can you expect the materials to come? You must do your homework. You must have clear targets. You must hold people accountable. If you don't hold people accountable, you can't get anything done. That's the problem with our country. We don't even hold our politicians accountable. When they put a budget and say, I'm going to do this, and then they come and put another budget next year, are we asking the question only this Verite and what do you call the famous Dhananath Fernando, that, forget the company, they are only just putting at saying advocata, yes, advocata. Now they are only putting and showing, okay, each politician's manifesto and they are showing what they are saying about the future generation, this and that. Now, as long as we don't hold them accountable, we can't blame these stupid politicians because we are not holding them accountable, right? So we are accepting that business as usual situation. So no wonder this country is bankrupt. So unless it's in our DNA, we don't hold people accountable. So like how we do in companies, good companies are doing that. And we must do it in the society as well. If somebody is, you go to the shop and they're not giving you the right quality, hold the person accountable. Don't buy, don't go there. Complain. So if all of us as a community do that, this country would be a better place, right? I'm not getting into politics. Some get really blunt boys, right? So it's really sad that we are not holding people accountable in companies and as a country also, right? Then it actually, if you put everything together in a more meaningful way, there will be teamwork because everybody likes to achieve targets. You like to contribute together because if you like some of the factory operations, again, last week I went to one of the top apparel companies. So in their factory floor, their targets are clearly identified. And then, everyone knows what they need to achieve. If there is a balance to go or run rate is now higher because they miss something and it's very clear cut. So actually everybody is pushing because that is linked to their target, right? So when you know where you want to go and it's clear cut, you have line of sight. You may not know how much in money terms that you have achieved, but the company has clearly identified a number of units pieces that you need to produce in order for you to achieve this weekly shift, weekly, monthly, annual targets. So it's very clear cut. So everybody's now, if one is absent, somebody is pitching. So there is teamwork happening. If there's I know in some companies, when a new person come in, they will actually slow down the process. So then it will affect your target, right? So what they do is, normally in companies, especially in the garment industry, they have practice line. So until the person achieve a certain level of the speed, they won't put into the main line. Because otherwise it will slow the slowest person only will determine the speed of the line, no? So if you don't attain that level till such time, because there will be pressure from these guys, our targets are hampered because of this slow person coming in. But you bring in, but that person has to come to a particular level of competence, then only you will be put into this line. So like that, you can actually motivate people if you have the right performance measures. Because it will also help you, dashboards will have all these reporting numbers, and it will also, in a factory kind of environment, process controlling, whether the process is okay, go, no-go situations, and it will be very clear cut, and then you can achieve the company plans. Are you clear? Okay, let's watch this video.
Sports is a world of measurement. Let's take a sport like basketball, where players attempt to make baskets. No, I meant ball and hoop type baskets. Suppose I tell you a player averages 23 points per game. Is that a good player, a bad player, a great player? A good coach would know that based off this limited information, it would be impossible to answer that question with any certainty. I mean, basketball is about more than just scoring, right? Players can block shots, rebound missed shots, steal the ball, and assist others in scoring. They can also make a number of mistakes that benefit their opponents. So now, what if I tell you that the player averages 23 points, 9 rebounds, 12 assists, and 4 steals per game? Is that a good player, a bad player, a great player? A poor coach might be tricked into answering that question, but a good coach would still realize that those statistics measure only certain aspects of effectiveness. To truly assess this player, you still need more information. How many shots did they take? How many minutes did they play? How many possessions did their team have during the game? In essence, a good coach wants to know how the player made use of their resources. Okay, so suppose I gave you the shots, minutes, possessions, available rebounds, and any other efficiency-related data. Would you feel comfortable making a decision about that player? Think before you answer. What other type of data would you want? I would want to know situational data. Suppose those 23 points, 9 rebounds, 12 assists, and 4 steals were accumulated by a tall 25-year-old man against the worst defenders in blowout games in a league of 5-year-old children. Still feeling good about this player's statistics? What we're seeing is that not every set of data is sufficient in helping us make good decisions. A good system of metrics needs to provide information on effectiveness, efficiency, and adaptability. And this isn't just true for sports like basketball. Businesses constantly seek to collect and study data in an effort to make good decisions. In fact, humans are hopelessly addicted to metrics that will aid them in making good decisions. What time is it? What's the temperature? What's your grade in this class? These are numbers that guide our actions. You see, performance metrics can actually motivate the behaviors of athletes, employees, students, and business partners. As the manager of a global supply chain, how can you know if your supply chain is effective, efficient, and adaptable? How can you motivate employees and supply chain partners thousands of miles away to do the things your customer and your company value most? And how can you identify those employees that deserve raises and promotions, as well as those who need assistance, additional training, or perhaps disciplinary action? What we're seeing is that a good system of performance metrics can provide guidance for managers, employees, and even customers. But to do so, modern managers, especially supply chain managers, must marry quantitative skill, psychological understanding, and operational know-how to develop the right performance measurement tools and systems so their companies can achieve their own unique set of goals. And this is an enormous challenge. Like a basketball coach, supply chain managers need to identify their best players, identify and improve the weaknesses of the team, know which situations provide the team with the best opportunities, and also understand which resources are being wasted. But your team is made up of thousands of players all over the world, and it's your job to get them all working toward the same set of goals. So don't let bad numbers lead you down a destructive path. Take control of the numbers and let them guide your team to an effective, efficient, and adaptable global supply chain.
So I hope you got that analogy also clearly linked to these performance measures. So somebody may be scoring a lot of goals, but then are you only purely looking at that, like the turnover target that I explained to you? So it may be a very poor performer, or maybe a 6-footer like Cakewalk. We also have Tarini, that Sri Lankan lady basketball player. Like she's like touching the thing, right? So I mean, okay, she's capable. Okay, she has the height, but at the same time, if you only looking at her, she only has scored the goals. It's also not good, right? Right? Our who's this Sri Lankan lady cricket? I'm missing names also actually. Yeah. Yeah, so I mean last match. Some other two other girls. Now the other girl also with Ireland, she scored. So like that, if you're only purely dependent on one, and you will not achieve. A company is consisting of many employees. Everybody must come in their own way, depending on the role that you play. So it's very important. The context is important. More details when you dig deep, drill deep into the issues, KPIs, then you know exactly whether you're moving in the right direction. So I hope you got it right, got some understanding about it, so that I mean, I don't need to go through this. You all know why we need performance measures now, because it's a critical success factor. It is aligning to the company goals. It will analyze your performance, whether you're good, bad, or ugly, right? It is a quantifiable measurement, so you know you were better than earlier or not, right? And your strategies are on track, right? So it's a very, very important parameter, because if you don't measure, you don't know where you stand, okay? So now this is how the linkage happens, right? You have vision, mission, your strategy, and you get inputs from the customers, you get inputs from the business, the internal employees in the company. So those with those inputs, you develop your strategy for the company, and then you have the functional strategy stemming from that. So I mean, I'm not only putting 3 here, but there are many other functions in the organization. So we are here now, operations, supply chain and operations here. So this linkage must happen. So if all this is articulated properly and right inputs have been taken, now tell me, voice of the customer, what are the things you can evaluate to check the customer input or the market input? Market aspects. You are studying this. What is the analysis you do? So you normally do a SWOT analysis. Before that, you do something else also. Starting with P. Yeah? What analysis? Pastille analysis. What is pastille? See, you need to integrate the knowledge, right? File එක switch off kara, put it into some bin, then you go to the next subject. No, you can't. Actually, you'll get more marks. I mean, I've done that. I got more marks because I integrated, when you're asking something to do in a particular HR subject, then you can add something else you learn in strategy, in marketing. That shows that you're integrating the knowledge, right? You cannot put into a forget folder or some bin and then move on to the next subject, right? So you should break down the silos, barriers, and integrate. And it's on a seamless path from one subject to another. And if you bring examples, and then we know that you are integrating, right? Now that you are physically writing, it's easy to, earlier like online, no? So now this time also physical, no? Handwritten, no? So it's easy to check. Otherwise online, we are also very difficult for us to do that. But here it's easy for us to check. P means what? What? Political. That's also important. External environment has to be understood. E. What? E is what? Economic.
Economical,
S is social. T is
social, technology,
technological. Then another E. Environment. Ethical. Yes, very good. People forget to say ethical. L is what? Legal. So
legal,
external factors have to be looked at. External factors have to be looked at. You do consumer understanding also one thing, but whether now in a context that we are in now, people don't have money, no, disposable income is less. Now you cannot only look at few consumers, you do a desk exercise and get a feedback and launch a product in the market. You can't. Because you need to look at how are you going to market it, whether people have money, macroeconomic conditions, the inflationary pressures. Now salaries are getting taxed, so your take home is less. So you will prioritize on certain spends. So you need to look at those aspects. Not only looking at the SWOT, yes, you do a SWOT, but you also look at that and consumer understanding, right? All that will give you inputs to your strategy, right? So very easy, visionary company requires 1% of vision. A lot of people spend long hours on vision and vision development, but very small percentage of your time on execution. And see whether everybody is aligned, because company will have different layers. The same understanding you have at the top may not be there at the bottom level. If you really want alignment and commitment and to achieve your company target, to realize your vision and mission, you need to get everybody on the same page. Again, I'll come back giving, that's what I know inside and out, inside and out. But Unilever in 2008, during the time I got to the board also, we had a global CEO, new guy who came from one of our competitors, Nestle's, and he came into the company. At that time, we had two organizations. Uni means margarine, Lever is soap. So one organization was in Dutch, Holland, the other one in the UK. So we amalgamated both and called Unilever. And this guy was looking at both sides now, CEO, Paul Polman. So he actually said, I want to double the business while halving the carbon footprint. We thought he's crazy because when you're doubling, how can you reduce the carbon footprint? So he got the base year as 2008 and he got the as-is situation. And you know the first thing he did? He called all the chairmen of companies, local companies, to London Twickenham Rugby Stadium and had a 2-day session on what he plans to do. He and his marketing head and the finance head and all of these supply chain operations head and all of that. And that was the year that they gave a board position for supply chain. Because he realized the importance of supply chain in the board level, right? So that time, and that is why when I got into the board as well. So he actually called everybody and did a strategy and say how this is what I want to do, this is how I want to do, how I will make it happen by 2020. And then there were motivational speakers and all of that. And when he did that, he recorded the whole session and he had a manual of what you need to do, like 8 to 10, 9 like this, 9 to 10 like that. He documented everything and he gave that entire CD at that time, CD and the manual, everything exactly what was done there to chairman and said, you do everything. This happened in January. You go back and cascade this to your teams and confirm to me in 1 month by end of February. How he got the alignment. Sometimes you need to use a bit of stick also. If you want everybody to know your vision and to realize that you can't sit in London and do this. And how it's impossible for you to go to 300 odd countries and physically do that either. Cannot possible. So you had a system in place to do that. I learned a lot from that strategy to really understand how this alignment, the importance of alignment and how to get commitment from people. And then our chairman came to Sri Lanka. He explained to the board. Then we ourselves were fully aware what needs to be done. And we had to cascade to our functional teams. Right? So I, as a supply chain director, I had to do it to my leadership team first. Then with my leadership team, I had to do it for the factory, up to factory level. So we went to the extent of translating everything with video and subtitles in Sinhala so that everybody understood. So exactly the same replica of what he did there in Twickenham Stadium, we did it in all the countries and we had to confirm. It was so successful and everybody knew what the company wants to, where the company is moving. And every year till he left the company, I mean, after I left, only he also left many years afterwards, but every year, even the targets were set and clearly identified. In order to do this, this is what you need to do. So it's very important. It takes a lot of effort, but if you do it, it's going to really, really hit on the nail and you will respond. In fact, we do annually climate survey kind of thing. And normally global Unilever strategy awareness was always getting low scores. This time it was as equal to, soon after this cascade we did in the following year, the global strategy was as equal as the local strategy awareness. So that shows even workforce members understood why we are doing what we are doing. So I'm saying you need to spend time to do this. You cannot do it just like a shortcut exercise. So you need to have a leadership team looking at this. How am I going to cascade it? Get a commitment, ensure that you have quizzes, you get people to talk about small video clips to explain how you're doing that. So you do multiple things, but initial communication is very important. So the alignment is very important because vision is only a small portion, just writing a statement, right? But then alignment and getting implemented is the important part, right? So I'll show you one example where Walmart, the biggest retailer in the world, how this execution happened in the company, right? You see, Walmart's founder is Sam Walton. He, at that time in the 1960s, when he set up Walmart, the market leader was Kmart. So now they have overtaken them. So Walmart founder at that time want to uplift the communities. The cost of living was high. So he wanted to improve the life standard of people. And that's how he started to make products affordable to people. It was in Arkansas, in Bentonville, Arkansas. So former President Bill Clinton's constituency, right? So therefore, his mission was provide value for the customers. Providing value means low-cost product, affordable products. Now, what was his competitive strategy? Was low prices every day. So you must have heard about, in marketing, people must have heard about EDLP, everyday low price. That tagline was actually coined by Walmart. And now even in our Cargills also they use everyday low price. Doesn't mean every day they keep reducing the prices, but they have a low price, right, in the market. So competitive strategy was that. So how did they operationalize it? Now we are looking at operations subject. So how do we really implementing it? So two aspects. Now trying to test your memory of the first supply chain session. Also, if you can, I hope you can bring it from there and put it into your part of your brain so that you will remember, right? So the first thing that you have to do is, if you want the low prices, that means what strategy they are adopting. We looked at two strategies. Low cost means what is the strategy? Efficient supply chain strategy. Cost leadership, therefore you follow efficient supply chain, right? If it's customer service, what is the strategy? Yeah? Starting with R, what? 2 N's I explained. Then I gave that for 2 by 2 matrix. Efficiency means you treat the cater to the bottom of the pyramid. You're keeping a small margin but selling it to a big audience. But if you're selling a niche product, catering to a smaller population, because rich people are only small percentage, but the poor people are, we have a lot in the population. So the top people, we sell it at a high margin, but therefore you have only a small. So either way you can make money. For the top end people, what is the strategy? They have to be quickly, remember, responsive supply chain. So the 2 N's, one is cost leadership, other one is customer service, responsive. So efficient supply chain. So in this particular example, they followed efficient supply chain. So if you're efficient, now again I'm asking a question. We looked at the drivers, supply chain drivers, 6 drivers. One of it is here. What is it? 2 of it is here. One is on this side, the other one is here. Supply chain to function, there are 6 things that needs to be there. One is you need to have a place to produce, place to store. Remember? You need to have a place to store. It's called facility. Remember? Right. Facility. Place to produce, place to store. Then you need to, because demand is never equal to supply, no? So therefore, what do you have to keep? Inventory. That's the driver that we have here. So if you're efficient supply chain, you can't have very high inventory because you're making small profit only, right? So you have to be cost efficient as possible, right? So think like a story, then you don't need to memorize, right? Supply chain needs stocks. So if you are very cheap, having cheap products, you can't keep a lot of stocks, right? So like that, you think like a story, right? So then it's easy to remember. Others, if you memorize, very difficult. Right? Sorry. So operations, low inventory levels. Now Walmart may be having a lot of outlets across the country and world also. So now some places you may be having stocks which is not selling. Some places you have that product is selling, but they don't have stocks. So they have to now link the store network. So the first thing that they did to ensure quick movement of stocks is to link all the network. What is the driver in supply chain that they are making use of there? Sorry, what? Transport, no, linking. Okay, transportation, yes, data transfer. Another important thing. What is moving in that? What is it? What? Come on, guys. If you don't have it, you grow up in the dark in supply chain. What do you need? Huh? What? Yes, data. So you need information, isn't it? Without information, you can't. You don't know which store has how many stocks. So information is a very important driver. It's the glue that binds the supply chain, right? In this day and age, without information, you can't do anything, right? So you need information. To get information, you need to link up everybody together. Then information flow happens. Yeah, you're correct. Technically, data. I don't think you thought it that way, right? Right. So next one has transportation, right? So here they use EDI links first. What is EDI? Electronic data interchange. So you connect information back and forth. And they in fact went into the extent of setting up later on a satellite communication system. If you go out to the net and Google retail link, Walmart, then you will find out. It's such a sophisticated system. It's even only second to the Pentagon defense system in the US. Very, very sophisticated system. Why? Because they have a huge network. They make a lot of money. They are like a GDP of X many times of the GDP of Sri Lanka and many other countries. So such a big brand. So for them to manage information is very important. And they in fact communicate everybody who are the stakeholders into their network. When you go to the supermarket, you go to the checkout counter and they punch in your information, what you bought. So what they do is within 15 minutes of, I think what they say is within 15 minutes of your transaction, it gets updated in their entire network. So you go to buy some Pampers and bread and some soap and whatever, whatnot. All the suppliers in my invoice will get updated real time, near real time within 15 minutes of the transaction. So the suppliers who supply soap, suppliers who supply bread, suppliers who supply Pampers, whatever, will get real time that X many number of units are now down in this store. So then the distribution center of Walmart will replenish that stock and that stock will be replenished by the supplier. So it's linked up. So the power of information, when you're connected, you can quickly communicate to everybody and then they can take action, right? So that's how they manage. So quickly they replenish the demand in the marketplace, right? So you manage it like that. So you need to do that. So that's one way they have implemented the strategy. The second way that they are looking at is short flow times. Now these cheap products, low cost, so people must be going there quite a lot. So when they go there, if the shelves are empty, you can't get a sale, no? So what they do is any stock which is out of stock will get replenished within 48 hours. So that's how they manage. To do that, you need transport. You need to have an efficient transportation mode. Now, normally you outsource transport, but Walmart has their own transportation fleet. They want to make it very reliable. They want to make it very fast. Doesn't mean they use courier. They use the same transport network, but they are reliable. And the drivers, in fact, when they recruit, in fact, they say when they recruit drivers, I don't know whether they're still doing it. One case study in that they were saying the drivers have to have 300,000 accident-free miles. US, they may be trekking it, I have no idea. 300,000 accident-free miles for you to be recruited as a Walmart driver. It's like a commercial pilot have X many number of hours of flying, like that an ordinary driver had to have that. Because why? When you're taking a huge 40-footer and a huge truck with so many goods, and if you're recklessly driving and you meet with an accident, the stuff is stuck on the highway. So they don't want that to happen. So they have lots of actions to ensure they have a very effective, reliable transportation network, which includes the driver management as well. Right? So this is how they go into that detail to ensure the strategy is implemented. So that is the alignment. If you make everybody aligned, they know, okay, our supply chain has to be efficient. So what is it that I need to do to make it efficient? So the teams at different levels will brainstorm and come up with ideas. That's the power of alignment. If you have capable people at different levels, otherwise HR will have to bridge the gap, skill gap through training and other on-the-job training, all of that, but you need to make sure. So how do they do that? They use this transportation system. Fast doesn't mean air freight or courier, but they use the entire transportation system, and also they use cross-docking and focus locations. I explain again cross-docking. I'm not going to explain. You read the transportation driver in that I have explained, right? So cross-docking, they pioneered that, right? In fact, here in the satellite communication system, they inform about weather data also to the customers, suppliers. Because let's say US is prone to a lot of tornadoes and hurricanes and all of that, right? So when such a thing happens, they know impending hurricane is coming. So they tell the customers, these kind of products are selling that time. So have it ready. And beforehand, you tell them. So if you're in a, tornado prone area, then you know that you need to have a, relocated place to stock up things and all of that. So they are that way proactive in doing that and keeping everybody in the loop, integrated. Right. So my important part here is to show you how that linkage happened. And these were the parameters that they are checking to ensure whether they are doing in the right way. At the end of the day, in the warehouse, person has to track these in order for you to ensure. So this is the linkage. So what are they checking? They look at order defect rate. How much of the deliveries that you are doing, whether you are having defects. Right? Next week, Dr. Sakuntala will be talking about product and process quality. You will understand the defect, quality defects and all of that. So order defect rate should be less than 2%. So 98% should be the right quality. That's a target. So on-time shipment rate. So when an order comes, you need to make sure it is delivered on time. You have only 1% chance to make a mistake. Only 99% has to be, more than 99% should be on-time shipments. Valid tracking rate. So you're using GPS tracking and tracking an order. When somebody is tracking, it has to be 95% or more has to be accurate. So like that, they have identified based on the customer need and the company capability, what can be done. So this is how the connectivity happens. So if you're within this, obviously you are achieving this, and finally. So this is one example, case study of a company who has really aligned and then implemented. Any questions? Questions? Clear? Clear, no? How this alignment helps in a company? Right. People at the back, are you okay? Yeah? Okay. If you're unclear, please raise your hand. I can again explain. Then again, I want to come back to another specific area. Now, in a company, the Logistics Bureau is a famous supply chain association. So they look at, they do various surveys. So in that, one of the surveys that they have done, they've asked two questions. One is, does your business have a documented supply chain strategy? I mean, less than 50 only said yes, 39%. Some are saying being prepared, 43% says they don't have it. It's very important if you don't know what you want to do in supply chain, because 70 to 80% of the cost is supply chain. If you don't know, that means recipe for disaster, right? And they also ask another question, if you don't have a documented supply chain strategy, do you think your business performance suffers as a result? Yes, majority feels there, higher numbers feels, yes, we are going to suffer, but some are saying 27, but still 8% of the people think no. So that's the kind of ignorance that you have, right? This was done before COVID, but post-COVID, I'm sure this situation should be improved. People knew the value addition that the supply chain does, right? So that is very important because strategy has to be there, functional strategies has to be there in a company in order for you to ensure that you're moving in the direction that the company wants to move. Now, I just want to bring your attention to this survey that was done some time back. Robert Norton and David the other way, Robert Kaplan and David Norton, famous balance scorecard guys, who wrote a book on strategy focus organization. And they did a survey to understand why most companies are failing to execute their strategy. Why many companies are failing to execute the strategy, right? So there are 4 reasons. One is vision barrier. Again, what we discussed extensively today. If the company people don't know what the vision is and they don't discuss it, you will sure to fail. 5% of that survey said 5% of the workforce only understand strategy. So the alignment wasn't there. People didn't communicate. They expected the board, whatever that the email that they sent, everybody knew. See the CEO of Unilever at that time, he made sure at each and every level you do that so that everybody's on the same wavelength. Very important, right? A lot of pain, but no pain, no gain, right? So important. You need to spend time if you really want commitment from people at every level, right? And then what is one reason? The other one is management barrier. 85% of the executive team spend less than 1 hour per month discussing strategy. Remember, I also at the second or third slide, I said, if you don't review, you don't know what's happening in the market. Market reality has to be reflected in your plan. That's why you do pestle and all of that. And you need to time, if the drastic changes are happening and it's continuing, you need to bring it back to your strategy and adjust it. Not on a day-to-day basis, but at least in regular intervals, like at least biannually, if there is a very volatile market. Or, now some companies are even looking at 3 months interval levels, but I don't know, depends on the situation, right? Then the third reason is the resource barrier. If your budgets are not linked to the strategy, obviously you don't have funds to manage your operations, right? So in this 60% of the organization don't link budgets to strategy, recipe for disaster again. And then people barrier. 25% of managers have incentives linked to strategy. Again, if you're incentivized for the wrong thing, you're promoting bad behavior, wrong behavior, and you will not get the intended result. So vision has to be, everybody must be clearly on the same page. You need to review it at regular intervals as per your company understanding, reflecting the market reality and internal issues. Third is budget has to be linked to the strategy. You have to clearly prioritize and do that. And then, of course, if you incentivize different functional employees, you need to clearly link that. Otherwise, they'll go and, like the example I said, they'll go and sell the easiest thing. But your company wants the entire portfolio because there are high margin, low margin, all of that. Strategic reason certain products are sold. If that is not reflected, you have a problem. Clear? So this is why 90% of the companies are failing to execute strategy. And this is not me who said this, the famous balance scorecard guys, right? So this is after evaluating a survey. So it brings us to an important area where we need to now look at when you're setting up a performance measures, you need to understand these basic terminologies, the metric, measure, and a KPI. Since already it's there, and I hope you've done your homework, tell me, what is a metric and a measure? What is the difference between metric and a measure? Yeah? Yeah, is it metric or measure? Yes, metric is. Anybody, others also agree metric is kind of a benchmark? Measure is very straightforward, right? Measure is some unit of measure, right? You measure the height with whatever, centimeters or feet, you measure the weight from pounds or kilos, like that. Times, depending on the thing that you're measuring, your measure would vary. And performance measure, therefore, is a measurable value that demonstrates that you're moving towards your business objectives, right? So it's important to understand these aspects, because when you're clearly identifying that, you will be able to manage it. Now we need to understand, how do you do this? How do you set up your performance measures? What are the steps? Assuming that you've done your homework, you've communicated your vision, mission, and all of that, everybody's on the same page. Now you need to see, how do you know whether, what is it that you need to do in order to achieve your vision? So you need to identify functional, then departmental, and then individual targets, right? So the first step is, you must have a clear understanding about the strategic goals, because that is your success indicator. Company has a vision, functionally you have a strategy. What are the strategic goals and objectives? So you will have to understand, right? I have a template example of a real company. So then when you look at it, you'll understand. Then you need to know whether what is the measuring period. Is it this year's figures are we tracking, or half year information, or quarter information? Otherwise, you can't compare them. So what is the period that you are tracking? So if you are saying you want to double the business, by when you're going to do that? Or if you're going to do it by year 2020, at that time, and when he said that, but then year on year, what would be your target? That also has to be clear cut, right? You can't expect them to calculate and find. You need to sell. Maybe you will not equally do that year on year, but you need to have split what the percentage, how you're going to do that, right? And the measurement unit. If you are checking sales, million rupees or $1 million, or if they're selling in numbers, units, you look at in numbers, because finance only convert that number into a rupee, like that. Sometime now you can, in the laptop itself, you can do that conversion, measurement unit. And how do you interpret the results? How do you know whether this is a good, bad, or ugly number? So when you're saying Walmart said they have to have shipment, on-time shipment, you need to say 99%, more greater than 99%. So since clear cut, greater than 99 means, if you're 99%, good, you achieve it. If you're 100%, you're really extremely good. So probably you might even incentivize, because you have exceeded the target. So you might have to say, because everybody may not be 100% achieving, when you set a target, you need to clearly say, okay, if within this bandwidth, you say green. If with this bandwidth, you say exceeded, whatever. So that when you are giving bonus or whatever increments, you know, like a bandwidth within which what percentage you need to give. So HR people know how to do this. So they know that within this bandwidth, you will give this much percentage increment. If you're this, you will give like that. So you have to clearly identify that. So assuming you've done that, let's again watch another video, because that shows when you're setting up now the performance measures, there are two types of performance measures that companies set up. One is a proactive one, the other one is a reactive one. Yes.
Carl works for an online retailer. He has all kinds of data available to him. Number of customers, average order value, top selling product, click-through rate. He even knows the percentage split between male and female customers. The problem is that when his boss, Karen, tells him that they need to improve sales by 15% by the end of the year to compete with their nearest rival, none of this data tells him what he needs to do to get those extra sales. The problem is that all this data is what we call lag data, or lagging indicators. This means that it's information about the past, what has already happened. It's useful for keeping score, but by the time Carl's systems have produced the information, there's nothing that can be done to change it. It's like driving past a sign warning that there's a steep cliff ahead. It explains what's happening, but it makes no difference to the outcome. Carl wants to do a good job, and he wants to please Karen. But however many times she tells him that sales need to increase, he can't make that happen just by willpower alone. Fortunately for Carl, there's another kind of data that is much more useful to him. It's called lead data or leading indicators. These are pieces of information that predict success, and they do this because they're measurements of the various activities that lead to sales being made. Things like the number of pounds per day spent on online advertising, the number of adverts that include an upsell option, the number of adverts that mention at least 3 different benefits of the product. Carl knows that achieving a higher score on any of these metrics makes it more likely that sales will increase. He also knows that he and his colleague Tina, the advertising copywriter, can influence all 3 of these variables to some degree at least. They can ask Karen for permission to increase the advertising spend for the next 6 months. They can come up with a relevant upsell for every product and include it in every advert. Tina can write a paragraph explaining at least 3 benefits of each product they sell and make sure it's included every time they write an advert for that product. Focusing on these powerful behaviors, we can call them predictive activities, and the leading indicators which measure those behaviors makes Carl and Tina feel more in charge of the results Karen wants from them. It also helps Karen relax because focusing on leading indicators rather than lag data generates more predictable and consistent results. So, lag data tells us about past performance. It's relatively easy to capture, but it's almost impossible to change once we have it. Lead data helps us predict future success because it measures the actions and behaviors that generate the results we want. It's relatively easy to influence, but can often be very hard to capture. If you'd like more information on how this approach can help your business.
So there are 2 types of measures that companies can adopt, right? So we can classify it under 2 areas. One is a leading indicator, the other one is a lagging indicator. Now they spoke about like a marketing kind of a sales example, but I just want you all to give me an example now that you know the difference between leading and lagging. So let's start off with lagging indicator. Lagging indicators actually happens based on the output. So after the incident has happened, you're tracking something. I'll give you one example. If you're tracking customer complaints, after customer is unhappy only, you're tracking that. Somebody complained to you, but what can you do? Maybe you can pacify him and manage him diplomatically. Sometimes he'll be okay. But there can be difficult customers and they may still, even if you treat them well, they may go and talk about it. And in social media, they'll go to town. So what can you do? You can't do anything. It's just that as a statistic, but it is not also a statistic. In the quality session, you'll understand there is a thing called quality mushroom. Only out of 100 problems, only 4 will complain. The rest will talk about it. So it becomes like a mushroom. 1,000 people will know the problem, right? So you might think this is 1 complaint versus last year we had 10 and you can be happy. But you can't be happy because not everybody is complaining, right? It depends on the behavior. So why companies are adopting more reactive kind of performance measure is because it's easy to capture. Yeah. So it has a historical figure also because you have been tracking it. Whereas in the leading indicator, very difficult. You have to think about it because what is it that I can do? It's more input driven. What is it that we need to do in order to prevent consumer complaint happening? Give me an example. Tracking consumer complaints is a lagging indicator. Now, to prevent consumer complaints happening, what kind of leading indicator you can have? Company, as a company. Yeah? Improving traceability. Yes, okay, that will certainly help you to investigate the root causes, right?
On-time delivery?
Sorry?
On-time delivery?
On-time delivery is also after the consumer complaining, tracking. You can track, but that again, will that tracking on-time delivery, will it help you to prevent the complaint? Of course, having a KPI will help you. At least you're tracking, no? But you will get to know that after the incident happened, no? To prevent the consumer complaint coming to you, what can you do? Proactively. Sorry?
We can ask for the review.
You can do?
we can have a process that we reach the customer and ask for the feedback, ask for a service.
Okay, good point. So you can proactively do a, survey. He said survey. So you can't be, surveys are very expensive. You can't do every time, no? So, okay, one way is you can randomly call, if you know all the customers, but if it's a kind of a consumer goods or something that is sold in the market, you can't be checking everybody and then you might have to get a representative result. You might have to interview a lot of people. But of course, it's good to do something than doing nothing. You can pick few things. And then also in social media and all, what can you do? IT guys are here. Marketing people. There's a thing called social listening, right? So what you can do is there are advanced algorithms. You can check the keywords that the consumers are using. You can look at what kind of, whether this person now, you may be targeted promotions and sponsors, promotions that you can do about advertisements for your client base. So you will know when they use your product, what kind of things they talk about your products. And some companies are actively using this now, where you can see some of the keywords, and from that you will know whether this person is becoming unhappy or not. Read those and then understand before something happens. That's one way to look at it. The other way is, again, surveys. That is very expensive. And proactively talking to somebody. But in a company process, what can we do? Exactly. Training. You train people so that they will not make, so you identify there's a problem. Company complain to us, somebody complain, and you dig deeper and looking at the traceability, which department, which person, which shift, which person do that, then at least you know this person is a new person. Or somebody who's not so skilled to do this. So you identify the real root cause and then you train the person. Targeted training. Bridging the skill gap. What else can be done? Now at the exam, I'm asking this kind of question, right? So I'm not asking define what is performance measure, two types, leading and lagging කියලා එහෙම අහන්නේ නැහැ. එතකොට ඕගොල්ලන් ටක් ගාලා හිතෙන් අරගෙන ඩොං ගාලා දානවා 5 year grade 5 scholarship වගේ. එහෙම නෙමෙයි. You guys are MBAs now. You have to think and write. How do you apply? So like that, what are the things that you can look at in this kind of situation? Mention a leading and a lagging indicator. එහෙම තමයි අහන්නේ ප්‍රශ්නේ. In a practical situation, you all should be able to say that. Like I'm trying to prompt you all to give an answer by saying one thing and asking you to tell the other ones, right? So think like that, right? What can be done to prevent it happening? Excellent, yes. You look at proactively preventive measures. Now when Dr. Sakuntala does it, you will understand quality assurance mechanisms. Right? So you have certain companies have, draw samples randomly, check samples and check it, that also appraisal cost. That's called appraisals that you can do. Also, you can do audits, isn't it? When you do audits in the company, you can see something is getting, trend is not good and you're tracking within a certain bandwidth, you have to have these parameters. So you have upper critical limit and a lower critical limit and you have a standard. So you see like, people going up and going above the target level, then you see this going up and very soon it will go up. So you start tracking it. When you audit, you will see that, right? So when you're tracking in the company, auditing is one thing. Let's say a company has, right? So with time, you're tracking, with time, company is tracking, let's say moisture level or whatever, some parameter you're tracking in the company. So this is your target, but you can't on the dot produce no in a company process. So you have a target like this, upper critical limit, then you have a lower limit. So within this bandwidth only you need to work. So every company must be checking samples and tracking and all of that. You have some sensor in the system and you're tracking, all that can be done. So when you're tracking, this is how things will move, and you see sometimes going up like that. So if you see somewhere here and trend is like this, then you can track it early. Yeah. So when you're doing that, you see the trend and you proactively look at it. So when you track it only, you will see, if you don't do it, these are input driven. Now, if you don't look at anything and it goes and out of hand, and this will end up in a customer complaint. customer is unhappy. That's what will happen. So you have to develop trigger mechanism. If you do 2-3 times at a particular level, you know this is going to go like that. If a person is increasing the speed and then going, and sure that person will go above the speed limit, sure that person will meet with an accident. So you should know, you should have a triggering mechanism which will prevent that person happening. I mean, prevent meeting the accident. So something like that. Right? So it's important that companies should have more preventive measures so that you don't need to really respond to these complaints and all of that. Again, in the safety space, give me one example of a leading indicator and a lagging indicator. You are working in a manufacturing environment. So tracking number of accidents is a leading or a lagging indicator. Lagging indicator, we all know that. How do you prevent? What kind of a performance measure we can do to identify as a leading indicator? Anybody working in manufacturing environments, raise your hands. Yeah. Do you track? Lost time accidents is one thing that we track, right? Yeah. Huh? Sorry? Hourly target measurement. No, that won't tell you, no? That is just achieving company target, no? What? Risk assessment you can do, yes. And if you track near misses, just missed over. And you have to have a safety behavioral culture in the company. So I remember we are very fanatic about safety in Unilever, right? So when you are going in the car, you can't answer the mobile phone. Engine on, mobile off. So there is a message, even if your boss or chairman calls, you have to say, no, people may be violating. Drink driving, not possible. So if you go for a company function, you have to get a taxi or whatever. Somebody who doesn't drink will have to drive. There will be still some people will be doing it, but then if you get caught, you will have serious repercussions, right? What happened is that, I missed the thought, whatever I was going to say. So you were talking about the target, near misses, sorry. So what happens is we had a system where, let's say if you're going down the stairs and you're keeping the phone and just calling and going down means you lose your attention. So if you see somebody, you have to stop the person, talk to the person. It's called safety something, I forget, safety conversation or something. So you, not in a bad way, tell the person, remember, this is not the right thing to do, and document that and put it in a box. So we know, like a same person, it's difficult to do that. Some people don't do it because if it's your friend, you don't do it. But there should be ways to, now with CCTV, you can track that. And where you will actually safety behavior or culture you have in the company, because you're concerned about the person. That's why you're doing that. You might do the same thing while you're crossing the road on a zebra crossing, you will do that. And you are focusing on the call and crossing the road and you don't even hear. Or maybe you have your earpods there, so you won't know. So like that, you have to have a culture. So having a safety behavioral culture in the company which promotes safe behavior by catching unsafe acts. So that will prevent actual acts. So that kind of thing is a leading indicator. It's very difficult. Sometimes people, you're a friend, I don't do that. But we all have a target also. Sometimes when you have a target, you have to track it, otherwise you won't achieve your target. So that way, initially they were not doing it. Then we put a target. Then people start doing it. So you will only put not your friend, somebody else. So sometimes also it's not good, but like that. So I'm saying, if you really want to genuinely improve something, you need to also look at preventive measures. But I'm not saying you totally do away with the lagging indicator, but you need to have a balance, but more prevention. Right. So now coming back to supply chain performance measurement specifically, we need to link everybody in the supply chain, link to this whole supply chain targets, suppliers, customers, transporters, service providers, and all of them. Otherwise, you will not be able to achieve the target. So same slide I showed you earlier. So if you look at supply chain objectives and operationalizing, you can have 3 types of measures. So one on the customer side, one on the financial sides, because you have to link up to the financial sides. The other one is the operational parameters, right? So I'm not going to read out everything, and you can read and understand. So some of the goals and measures for customer service side is to ensure company's ability to satisfy the needs of the customer, right? So if you really meet the customer needs in a timely manner, you will provide exceptional customer service. So these are some of the performance measures you can identify in the company to ensure what is the goal. If you want to be checking whether you're flexible as an organization to respond to the customer demand, you will measure number of choices and average response. If you have thousands of products, your availability of all 1,000, or you're always keeping only 10 products. So if you are not flexible, you will not have that kind of availability. So you like that, you need to target depending on the industry need that you have. Similarly, operationally means inside the organization, in the operation, what are the things that you need to identify for your processes, the decisions, the actions taken internally to meet or exceed the customer expectation. Because customer is out there to supply the customer or service the customer, you need to look at internally. AC වැඩ කරනවද? AC off color. I'm feeling very warm, right? So it's important to understand internal parameters. So if you look at internal parameters, you have waste reduction, lead time reduction, unit cost reduction, innovation, inventory, supply performance. So like that, you can have a series of things. This is not exhaustive list, but you can look at all of that. Then financials, we all know these are standard financials that we check. Again, you can check any number that you feel that is necessary for the company. So now this is a classic example of how this whole realization of the company target with an example. I showed you the Walmart example without the overall company, but to show the alignment. But I'm showing here, this is an actual company, not a local company, an international company. That's why you see in dollars. So this is the company targets, objectives, goals and objectives. This is the supply chain strategy that you need to achieve these company goals. And these are the KPIs that the company can set in order to achieve this and then in turn this. So I'll show you some examples. Some are very high level. Maybe those who are not in supply chain may not understand, but it's okay. Just for your understanding, I just listed out these things to show you the big picture, how this connection happens, right? Okay, this company has 3 main goals. One is on the customer side, the other one is the financial targets on the revenue and margin. So on the customer side, restore customer service leading level. So they want to be the top level customer service achievement. That's one high level objective they have. So what is the goal? How do we know whether they have achieved this objective? The goal is score 9 out of 10 on annual customer survey. So leading edge, they may have defined as success look. What does a success look like as? If you achieve 9 out of 10, you are achieving leading level. So in order to do that, customer service supply chain has to ensure when a customer orders something, you need to deliver on time in full. If you fulfill the demand 100%, obviously they will be happy, right? So let's see, that is one aspect. The other one is improve revenue. So their goal is raised to 5 billion. So the company wants $5 billion turnover achieved at the end of the year, annual target. The other one is improve margin by 10% increase of the margin. That's a goal. Now, if you look at when it converts to supply chain, there are 4 types of things that look at in the strategy to do these 3. So if you are looking at the customer service, as I mentioned to you, you want to achieve customer service, meaning whatever customer orders or customer requests, you should supply that on time, right? So what they look at is improve delivery performance. right? What is it that they need to use as KPI? How do I know you do that? On-time delivery performance. So you have to have a target for that. The number is not given here. Their KPI to know that you have achieved 9 out of 10 is, you need to ensure the strategy should be to improve delivery performance. Currently, maybe they are at 80%. I'm just giving a hypothetical figure. And if you want to, can't be 80, no, now 9 out of 10 means they must be very close, assuming 90%. If you're 90, maybe you might have to increase it to 95, which is difficult, very high. So you will have an on-time delivery performance based on customer requested date. In the sense, it's not only the quantity, but timeliness is also very important. One customer says, I need it within 24 hours. Some customer might say, I need it in 2 hours. Some customer might say, I need it in 3 days. Whoever says the time, you need to make sure on time delivery in full has to be delivered. Timeliness and the quantity. That. So that's how the performance measure gets identified for the supply chain. Then improve revenue. Goal raised to 5 billion. Supply chain strategies align sales strategy with planning, purchasing, and inventory strategy through sales and operations planning. Has anybody in the class, in their company, have heard about sales and operations planning? It's an OP process. Sales and operations planning, it's an integrated business planning tool, mostly used in FMCG industry and even apparel also to some extent. In Sri Lanka, I have seen that mostly in FMCG, because you need to align everybody. Otherwise, sales people will go for another target, factory will work on another number. Although your company has a particular target, they have their own individual targets. Then there is no alignment, right? Because they'll go and sell anything. That example I mentioned. So if you go into that granular level, everybody should be integrated and they talk towards one number. So sales and operations planning will enable that. It will ensure your planning, purchasing, inventory together with the company demand planning target. All of that has to be aligned with the sales strategy, right? So everyone should work. So it is not sales who will dictate and say, I need X many number of cases. That number is based on the market demand. Demand planners will say, this is the actual demand in the marketplace. And the company has these constraints and capabilities. And therefore, we can go for this target this much. Okay, we need investment or we need additional capacity, CapEx investment is required, or I need more inventory, I need to outsource and get it from another country, whatever. So you need to look at that to increase your sales. So that's alignment will help you. So normally, how do you know whether you have achieved your target is look at the forecast accuracy. Company has a forecasted sale. And based on the forecast, what do you go and actually sell? So forecast minus the sale divided by 100%, and then you will get a percentage of the accuracy, right? At forecast minus accuracy, forecast minus sales achievement divided by 100 as a percentage would give you the forecast accuracy. So higher the forecast accuracy, more closer you will be reaching the company targeted turnover. So if you start tracking forecast accuracy, you will get you there. Then we need to also make sure in order to achieve the target, you need to also have inventory available. So they also have a metric health. They are also going to create an inventory health metric, meaning what is the amount of inventory you need to carry. Based on that, you monitor the health of the inventory in the company. So maybe a certain percentage of the forecast, if you have, you say green. If it's below this, you say amber, like that. Maybe they may be having some metric, right? And then also they have another strategy to get the network and inventory strategy. So you need to clearly have a strategy. Network meaning you have factories, whether you're getting a centralized factory or a decentralized factory, or whether you have distribution centers, where how much of stocks you keep in different locations. So the network means the whole network of factories, the warehouses and all of that. So their strategy includes that as well. And So to check the sales and operations effectiveness, to achieve that, they do the forecast accuracy, but they also have to check the inventory turns. How many times you turn over the inventory? If your inventory is stuck in the warehouse, your money is tied up there. You're not getting money sale out of it, right? So if you turn over inventory many times, is it good or bad? Good. Higher the inventory turnover, better it is. Having said that, certain companies might have higher inventory turnover. Let's say, for example, if you're a McDonald's, fast food chains, will have 200 times inventory turnover. But if you look at an automobile company, you won't have that much because you don't buy cars every day like that, no? So you have to always compare inventory turnover with the related industry, right? So you need to know if you're in FMCG, what kind of inventory turnover. If you're in a fast food or a pharmaceutical industry, what kind of turnover. So depending on the industry, you need to benchmark and see what kind of turnover that you need to have. But higher the turnover, better it is for the company because your working capital management becomes that much better, right? Then finally, your margin. What is it that you need to do? You have to clearly have a supplier scorecard and a portal because suppliers must send things on time to you. Then only you can manufacture it. So supplier reliability is very important. So you have to check supplier on-time delivery. Then only you can achieve on-time delivery for the customer, right? So upstream margin management, so procurement cost is very high, 60 to 70% in a company. That's the bulk of your cost, right? So you need to manage that. And also one of the things that track here is premium freight percentage. Can somebody tell me what is it? Premium freight percentage? How much money you pay more than that you have targeted for freight. So normally let's say you're getting it through sea freight, but at times you might have to expedite the shipment and air freight it. Due to some reason, because of your poor planning or supplier issue. If it's a supply issue, you might charge it from them. But if it's because of your fault, you might have to bring it at a higher rate. That might eat into your profits. Yeah, your profit might get even wiped out quickly. So it's very important to track that because you have to increase your margin by 10%. So you can't afford to have premium freight percentage. So they have brought in another dimension there. Right? Garment industry has this one of the KPIs because they have a cutoff date for the shipment to go. And if you don't send the goods to the port before that cutoff date, you will miss the ship. Customer is expecting on a particular day, you might have to air freight it. In one shipment, your entire profit will go off. So very important, you need to plan. If your suppliers are not sending things on time and you miss it, you have a problem. If you are in the export industry, whatever, very difficult. You need to ensure the timeliness. So you need to keep some slack for each and every stage to ensure that in case if cutoff date is 20th August, you need to at least keep 1 week for anything that is happening or whatever, depending on the reliability issues that you have, right? So are you clear as to how this connection happens? Different companies will have different KPIs, but you will have to understand these specifics, okay? Are you clear so far? I know it's heavy. Are you clear so far? So just why we need KPIs? What are the types of KPIs we have? The different things that you need to look at, how to set up performance measures, right? And then there are two types called leading and lagging. Yeah, you can give examples now at least, right? For different situations, right? And how do you align why companies fail to implement strategy? And how do you fix that problem? Very clear. What are the ways and means you can use to do that? Has to be very clear. And I'll show you one example called balance scorecard. Anybody in the class, in their companies, do you use balance scorecard? Anybody from CIC? I know CIC used to do balance scorecard. Anybody from CIC here in the class? Right. So I don't know. Many companies are using this. not only for supply chain in general. So it is again the same guys who did the strategy on the strategy focused organization, the why 90 companies fail. These are the two guys, Kaplan and Norton, and this book is there in the library also. So Balanced Scorecard is a strategic planning management system. So if you're looking at the company activities and to align that vision strategy, you can use this methodology to check the alignment and then to see how you set the goals and performance targets for the company. So Balanced Scorecard means the scorecard which will balance the organizational, functional, different areas. So what are they checking? The 4 perspectives. I'm sure this will be done in finance also, managing financial subject also. You did it. So then you must be knowing this. I don't need to talk about it. At least she remembered, right? Yes. So this is actually, you know that, so I'm not going to touch upon it. So it has internal as well as external. So you look at the customer side, how they look at you. Internally, what is it that you need to do to excel so that you can deliver the customer requirement? And what are the, how do you know whether you achieved your results through finances to create value to your shareholders? And then what is it that you need to do to keep innovating so that you will be relevant to the marketplace, right? So I was going to give an exercise also. I'm not going to do that now, right? So I want you all to do a breakout exam question also. So all of you all are pro experts in this, right? So I won't give a question then for the exam, but just for your completeness sake, I wanted you all to do a performance measures that could be identified for a company using this methodology. So this is a template that you can use. So for financials or customers or whatever, you can use objectives, measures, targets, and initiative. So next slide will have that. Again, an example, specimen example of a company, right? So example is like, let's say, actually they should put specific numbers also here. So I'll take financial is boring. I'll take something here, right? Okay, the customer. So delight the customer is one objective. Strategic priorities is delighting the customer, win-win dealer relations. So delight the targeted customer. So you have to identify the targeted customer as the objectives. Then measure is share of segment. You have a certain segment of the market. What percentage of share that you own? Then mystery shopper rating. So you test it like a proactive. That's a leading indicator. Mystery shopper. Because you act like a mystery shopper and call and see whether whatever that is in the SOP is happening. You can do mystery caller. You know, if you have a consumer complaint hotline, you can be a mystery caller and see whether they're doing it the way that you have articulated, right? Then whatever the dealer GP growth like that, so you can have a target. And then see, these are all targets and measures, but what is it that you need to do in order to achieve that? So they have a mystery shopper program. Probably they haven't had a program like that. So you have to have a system in place. So again, one liner won't do. You have to use 3W. Who will do that? When you will do that? This is just a one page they have. If I am going to do that, I will have a 3W also, another column, right? Because otherwise it's just a line only. Nobody's baby. It can be, everybody thinks somebody did it and nobody did it finally, right? So you have to assign a person, accountability, and the time, very important. And dealer committee, I just downloaded from the net here, this particular specimen. So dealer committee, so like that they have initiative. So you need to be very clear, there should be an initiative. This is what part only. Who will do by when is not here. So both has to be included here. So these are some examples that can be used for the 4. Now, in the next half an hour or so, we will talk about this specific one related to supply chain, right? So in supply chain, one comprehensive framework that is used to measure supply chain performance is called SCORE model. On the very first day in the supply chain session, I actually did a small explanation on this. This is the slide that I used, this one. I hope you remember on the very first day. supply chain can be classified as per the SCORE model: plan, source, make, deliver, and return. So in the supply chain end to end, from the customer end to the supplier end, how you define different things that you do in the supply chain. So this SCORE model is Supply Chain Operations Reference Model, defined by Council of Supply Chain Management US. So normally they say, I think I mentioned also, normally they say if you don't have more than 100 people in an organization, investing on a SCORE model is not worth. So if you're a bigger organization, if you want to benchmark and see how your processes, different performance measures, people capabilities, all that very comprehensive way you can really look at. In fact, one of the famous guys who wrote a book also here on supply chain excellence using SCORE model, Peter Bolstock and Robert Rosenberg. So he actually, I met him some time ago, so he just gave a personalized copy also to me. So it's a detailed one. I have asked the library also to buy if anybody is interested to get it. So this particular framework is very important, right? So this actually talks about the methodology. It's a diagnostic tool and a benchmarking tool which help organization to really make transformational changes in your supply chain. Why I say this is, big companies, if you're in different industries, if you're subscribing to this SCORE model, you will be able to benchmark your industry best practices and also the target. Let's say if you're in apparel industry and you are subscribing to SCORE model, you will know whether certain KPIs that you have set for yourself, whether it is leading or whether you're average company, or whether how to benchmark the numbers. Even sometimes when you're setting KPIs, you don't know whether the number that you are putting, whether is competitive or not. So you will have access to that also. So in a broader sense, in this SCORE model, supply chain operations reference model, this is the supplier side, this is the customer side. So it also specifically talk about the supplier processes and customer processes. And it talks about 1, 2, 3, 4 processes. So what we are looking at is only in this, but it has, you have to subscribe to different areas, right? Let's say they also look at product and portfolio chain, that is PLCOR they call it. So product and portfolio management. If you know company has a portfolio and a product, how you manage that. So they follow that process as plan, ideate, develop, launch, revise, and enable. Then if you have product and process design aspects, which Dr. Travis did it, design chain it is called DCOR. So the processes that is in there is called plan, research, design, integrate, and amend. Design process, right? This is a product portfolio life cycle management. Here, sales and support, customer side also, they have a separate module. It's like SAP, different modules are there like this. So SCOR, plan, relate, sell, contract, and assist. Now, this is what we are talking about. I'm not going to talk about that. I'm just showing you the big picture. Here, supply chain is plan, source, make, deliver, return, and also they talk about enable. Enable is the enabling processes that you have. So how do you really look at this? So you don't need to memorize. I won't ask a question on this because it's meaningless, because you guys are not supply chain experts to do that. But for completeness sake, I'm showing you here that there is a thing called a SCORE model, which is comprehensively looking at supply chain performance measurement, right? Enough, forget folder එකට දාගන්න එපා. Just keep it in your mind, right? So this is the structure, right? What they look at is, they look at the performance, that is the standard metrics to describe process performance and define strategic goals. So what we are discussing today, it talks about the performance metrics. That is one thing to achieve the company goals. The other thing is they also talks about the processes, standard description of management processes and process relationships. So it also links, if you don't know much about supply chain, of course, if you are a big, more than 100 people in an organization, you are a very evolved organization. So that organization will have so many processes, how that is getting linked to the relationships with people and all of that process and the management processes. Then practices, management practices that produce significant better process performance. Then people, that is also a link there. Standard definitions for skills. Now, different functions, they define skills also. So if you don't have access to that information, they have that also. If you are in planning function or a sourcing function, what kind of skills you need to have also is defined here. Then finally, now they have added another one called sustainable score. Now, green aspects also have been brought into that, where standard definitions of sustainable business models and environmental accounting. So just for your understanding on the structure of the score model. And these are some of the performance metrics that they have identified. Only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 they have. Within those 5, there are sub metrics that they talk about, right? So they look at reliability of a supply chain, right? Reliability meaning, I explained to you last time at the session on the supply chain risk assessment, the resilience, how robust your supply chain is, right? So they look at the ability to perform, this will be a useful slide for you, the ability to perform tasks as expected. Reliability focuses on the predictability of the outcome of a process, how reliable your supply chain is. So what can you look at it? On time, the right quantity, the right quality. Responsiveness, speed at which you can perform the tasks, right? So how quickly you can supply to the customers. Cycle time metric. So how, meaning your lead times, each and every lead time should be shortened, compressing the lead time so that you can quickly look at it. Then agility, ability to respond to external influences. Remember the 2x2 matrix on the supply chain strategy? I explained to you the agile strategy. Especially nowadays, things are changing so fast in the marketplace. You have to track how agile you are, right? It's very important. When some change happens in the marketplace, how can you quickly adapt to that overall? Otherwise, your overall value at risk and you take a decision. Remember the risk appetite I mentioned to you? So based on the risk appetite, you need to understand that. Again, the cost. Of course, this is straightforward. Whatever that you are incurring cost in the supply chain, they track the cost of goods sold. Then asset management efficiency, ability to efficiently utilize assets. So you look at inventory days, supply and capacity utilization and all of that. So specific aspects they track and then define, and how to implement that in your company is clearly articulated in this, in a standard framework. So, I mean, these 6 ones, the next level is this. Reliability is tracked. Then the next one is perfect order fulfillment. That's a 1.1. So the next level is 1.1.2. Like that, go down into such granularity level to manage the specific different levels in the performance measures. Okay. I know it's a bit of an overdose on performance measures. We spoke about the balance scorecard. We spoke about specific supply chain related performance measure. All of this will really power the supply chain, the forward march of the supply chain, right? Because if you really have a well-oiled supply chain, despite the disruptions that are happening around us, you will be able to achieve the supply chain strategy execution, right? Because if different functions are not achieving your supply chain strategy, then obviously you will not be able to achieve the company goals, right? So now it brings me to this specific technological enhancement in the supply chain, where how the technology is bringing the supply chain or enable the supply chain to move proactively. Has any of you have heard about this supply chain control tower concept? Any company has this control tower? You know a control tower, what does it do? Control tower? Yeah, well, what does it do? Gives you the direction, no? It has all the information being fed into that control tower, all the stakeholders feeding the information, so that you have a kind of a dashboard to take actions on the supply chain. So that's exactly what is mimicked here using technology, right? Now, with technology being deployed in supply chain, you can also mimic. I think last time I mentioned about digital twins. Remember? In supply chain risk assessment, I mentioned digital twins. Did I? Not. I did so many supply chain lectures, so I don't know to which group I have mentioned that. Did I mention digital twins? You know what a twin is, no? Your replica, exact replica. So now digitally, you can mimic your supply chain. That's called digital twins. Search in the internet. So digital twin is, now I'm trying to show supply chains becoming very complicated now, right? So much complications that are there because of the external market disruptions and changes that are happening, right? So what is important to understand is, right, now I mentioned, no, we live in a Barney world. It's very chaotic, age of chaos, right? ඒකවත් මතකද? ගිය සුමානේ කියපු. Right? Remember? B is for what? Half an hour more to go. Right? B is for what? Brittle, very brittle. Things can go wrong and everything can break. A is what? Human beings are so stressed. So what? What? You're very anxious, right? You're anxious. People are anxious and knee-jerk reactions. People take wrong decisions, therefore. Because so many things mentally they don't have peace also. So you need to understand human being. You may robotize the entire supply chain, but still human beings have to drive those robots. So it's important. So very anxious. N is what? Is it happening in a very straightforward manner? Non-linear. පොඩි ළමයින්ට වගේ දෙන්න ඕනේ පොඩි clue ටිකක් නැත්තම් මතකට එන්නේ නැහැ. ටක් ගාලා බල්බ් එක පත්තු වෙනවා එතකොට. Right? So it's non-linear. Right? What හිනත් යනවා ඔයගලත් මේක. හරිද? Then what is the last one? Tell me, at least for my own satisfaction, the last one. I. Very difficult to do what? I. Chaos. It's a chaotic situation. So therefore, what happens? People have to. Very difficult to hire. Incomprehensible. හිතන්නවත් බෑ මේ ප්‍රශ්න හින්දා අපිට. Right? That's the problem. So this is the kind of world we live in. Right? This is the kind of world we live in. So when you can't even think and fathom what's happening around us, we reach out to technology also, because technology is pervasive now. It's democratized. You can do many things now with technology, right? So I mean, Lankawe හිතලවත් නැහැ තාම. We are still in industry 1.0 or 2.0 era, many companies. What I'm saying is, in this industry 4.0 era that we are living in, companies now want to understand, when so many changes that are happening, can we do some simulation, mimic the reality in my supply chain and say what can go wrong? Like, you feel that, okay, if I continuously have this kind of a diet, or you have Atkins diet, Mannaku diet, I still haven't tested any diet. But I'm saying, these complicated diets are there to, reduce your weight. Now, you can do that, but some people really go to the red zone and have other complications. But you can't do that in a supply chain, no? You can't try out. Things can be disastrous. So that's why companies are now looking at different scenarios in the digital space. You have a real supply chain here, physical supply chain. This is a digital supply chain. Same physical environment you mimic in the digital space. So that's called digital twins. It's simple way. So you can do a lot of simulations in that digital space, right? And you can then proactively look at what can go wrong if the shipment delays, this happened, that happened, like that. You can look at it. I don't have exposure. I'm just giving based on what my research have been done, but I haven't tested in such an environment, so I'm not an expert therefore. But you can do research, and there are so many YouTube videos on that. So digital twins is some new thing that is happening in supply chains to mimic the physical environment to see what can go wrong. So that you can learn from that and be ready, and you can adjust your supply chain to face the new normal that we are experiencing. So similarly, in the same space, we are also now looking at supply chain has many stakeholders, right? Within the company, sometimes we have kind of dashboards, okay? Within the company, we have feeding, you have the ERP system, so everybody's linked to that. So information is somewhere you can get that to get visibility. But if you have visibility with all the stakeholders that you have, all the partners that with whom you are dealing with, for example, all your suppliers, transporters, service providers, outsource partners, 3PL logistics providers. So many players, if they all can feed in this information into your control tower or linked up, like the Walmart, they have linked up all their suppliers. Like the Dell, they have linked up all their suppliers. Like how Toyota has linked up all their suppliers within a 50-kilometer radius, they have it there so that they can supply just in time. So like that, technology can do many things. If you can, I mean, it's like blockchain, right? You know what blockchains are? What is blockchain? What does it do? ඔගලගේ generation එක මට වඩා දැනගන්න එපා මේවා. I belong to the X generation. You guys are younger people. This is your era. Right? Your era, you should teach me on this, right? So you guys should know about what's happening around us in this technologically enhanced environment, right? So blockchain is a distributed ledger, right? If you trust each other in the chain, let's say your suppliers, your bankers, your transporters, and everybody, you feed in that information into that chain, and you can't change anything. If you change, you have to get permission from all the people in the chain. That will never happen, no? So, hora karanna bෑ. You can't adjust the information, alter the information. Hora karanna bෑ. Document, shipping document, adu karanna, venas karanna bෑ. You can't do that. Because it's a distributed ledger. If you want to change, everyone has to agree. So it's a very trusted system. And it will actually, like what you mentioned about the traceability, it will actually improve traceability. I'll give you an example of a local company who has a blockchain, and they are really making money out of it also. So this is, I hope you have heard about this Celine, the apparel company. It's like handloom company. They are based in, it's a very old company, been in Kurunagala. They have their shop in Colombo in 5 Road, Colombo 5, Timirigasaya Patte. So they do actually work with artisans, mostly women artisans. Like ඉස්සර කාලේ මෙහෙම ලී වලින් කරන්නේ මෙහෙම කරලා handloom ඒ වගේ. හරි. So that one industry, so they actually that can fetch a big high price in the market. So they actually now have a product. Earlier the mother was doing. Actually, Sandra Vaduragal is the founder. She in fact became the Forbes over 50 top 50 Asia. She was chosen like that. Very famous lady. Now the daughter is the one who's putting all these innovative things. So she started working with some funding agencies, and they have a product called which is made out of banana fiber. Handbag made out of banana fiber. Handbag or some carrying bag or whatever. That was selling in the Dutch market for 290 or around 200, between 250 to 300 euros. After they implemented the blockchain to give traceability, in fact, even the workers can check whether their salaries are paid on time, the EPF has gone, all that information is in the chain. So even the client in that part of the world can see that, whether this is a decent company, ethical company, all that is, because you're opening up everything to them, right? And now after blockchain traceability has been given, can you just guess how much that product is being selling in the market? Any idea? Mind-boggling. Huh? $750 euros. So just imagine how in the Western market, for ethical manufacturing, giving the real authentic product, giving that traceability can be a huge advantage for the company. I mean, Sri Lanka can make a lot of money if we can do that. Especially the Sri Lankan cinnamon, because we are having the best cinnamon in the world. All the rest of the world has cassia. It's not the real cinnamon. And Sri Lanka got the global identification or whatever also now. So how, if we can prove that this is coming from Sri Lanka or Ceylon tea or whatever, because other people cannot then mix and adulterate the product and sell it. Cassia is selling at 1/10 of the price of this local cinnamon, but you can sell it to a higher end of the pyramid and make money, especially when you're bankrupt in this country. So you must know what to go and invest money. So I'm saying, so coming back to this slide, so see the traceability has given them that much of revenue, right? So this what I am showing this control tower is supply chain needs visibility and transparency. Otherwise you can't operate. So now companies are moving into control towers. They have different levels of traceability and visibility, and the subsequent actions that you can do when you have visibility and traceability. For example, let's say I'm sourcing something from China. The basic level of control tower is to have visibility, right? So control tower meaning automatically collecting and integrating structured and unstructured data also from across the supply chain, from barcodes, remote sensors, IoTs, to weather and traffic data to provide real-time information insights. So just imagine your supplier is in China, your shipping company, and then freight forwarder, and your port people, your transporters, your factory people, and your customer, all of the people, internal transport and external, whatever. If there is a delay in your supplier's shipment, you only will get an email. Others won't know. If everybody is connected to this control tower and linked up, if there is a delay, even the customer will know that I'm not going to get the shipment because everything is fed into the system now. How much time it takes to produce discs, what time. So all that is automatically getting activated. So it will get triggered. You don't need to send emails. All that time taken to communicate will go away. So the level 1 of the control tower is to first of all get everybody together like a blockchain. They all must agree to feed in the information. You have visibility to all the events and milestones you want to track across the entire network. So you get everybody on the to the system. The second level is to get an alert, like the example I mentioned. Once everybody is in the system, the level 2 is you receive alerts based on the SLAs and lead times tagged to all events and milestones, and you collaborate to resolve them on time. So you are linked to everything now. You have a SLA. If a plus or minus 1 week delay, you trigger to us. So the message comes. Everyone will know now there is a message. You don't do, but at least you agree the service level agreement and all that information is fed into the system. So there will be an alert. Second system is that level. Third is it will help you to do decision support. You take decisions based on the alert because you have you now execute transactions within the control tower and the users make decisions based on recommendation from intelligent agents. You have IoT devices, so those information will get activated. You know, okay, now we will change the production run because shipment is getting delayed. I will change my other product and inform the supplier. I'm supplying the next week's order, not this week's order. So you take intelligent agent will prompt you and you take decisions in the supply chain. Because the power of having these remote sensors and all of this information. Final level, the highest level is autonomous supply chains. We all know autonomous vehicles. You don't need a driver. I haven't gone in that. But in California and all, vehicles are there. You can, like a cab, you can order an autonomous vehicle. So it will drive you around the city, right? Of course, one of them met with an accident also. So it will have sensors. So when you come to a particular device, it will stop. Certain distance, it will sense it and it will stop. So you will have that, right? So you will understand, now earlier the intelligent agent will take decisions. But here the recommendation only will be given, you take action. Now, final level is intelligent agents embedded in the execution layer, run the supply network without human intervention. So it will everything happen autopilot. So that's the ultimate thing in supply chain. You don't need anybody. Automatically, it will work like the video I showed you, I think. I hope I showed that. I showed the video about the Amazon warehouse. Did I show you? Not so I showed the video on Amazon robots in the warehouse, and robots on their own operate. They'll just manage. Nobody's there. So like that, this is how the technology is being used in supply chains to really take decisions. You have mimic the supply chain to look at different scenarios so that you can now do it in the digital space with some degree of accuracy so that you can proactively work on the supply chain. If this happens, if the government increases revenue, what will happen to the lead time? If the US China trade sanctions will get intensified, what will happen to my supply? So like that, there are many things you can work on it, right? So then you will look at it. Okay, are you clear? So how the technology is really transforming supply chains now. So just there are many other examples, but I just wanted to show you this because finally the performance measures should activate the way you run your supply chain, right? So it's important. And these are some commonly used supply chains coming from a technology to a really a manual kind of driven tracking, where we look at some of the things like this to look at the timeliness, the cost, and the quality. So when you have time and quality, you look at responsiveness. You have time and cost, you look at agility. You have look at cost and quality, you become a lean organization. So these are some of the things, again, not an exhaustive list that you look at. So I think finally, a supply chain is actually a driver of shareholder value as well. Supply chain is sitting on a huge cost base. And obviously, if you are managing your revenue and you are managing your profits, you get your economic profit, obviously you create shareholder value. So shareholders really want the value to be raised all the time. So EPS, higher the EPS, better it is for them. So how do you create value? Because if you look at the net income is between these two parameters in financial parameters, sales revenue and cost of goods sold. So sales revenue is directly impacted by supply chain, making sure the products are available. Then cost of goods sold directly flowing through to the profit, the net income will improve. So 60 to 70% controlled by the extended supply chains, right? And if you look at the assets, working capital, not only inventory, actually it's creditors also. When you're dealing with the supplier, you are directly managing your supply chain working capital, right? And then physical capital, supply chain is really looking at how effectively you're utilizing your capacity in the factory, warehouse, factory, all of that capacity management. Sorry, this has to be factory, yeah? It's a spelling mistake. Utilization of factories, warehouses, and space in retail stores. Sorry, I couldn't correct it actually. And finally, economic profit is simply the profit less the cost of capital needed, right? So you create shareholder value. So there is a direct correlation between supply chain management as a driver of shareholder value. Because why I'm specifically showing this is, and a study that was done shows if your supply chain is not performing well, poorly performing supply chains will destroy shareholder value typically by an average of 8.6%, which is significant. So if your supply chain is not really doing well, it has a direct bearing on the shareholder value. So it is in the interest of the shareholder and also the reputation of the company and also for sustenance of the business, it's important for you to really focus on the supply chain, right? Finally, the maturity of supply chains. There are different levels. You can have a very basic supply chain where people don't have the understanding of what is the length and breadth of supply chain. You don't know about your concept of supply chains. You don't know where you are having. So it's highly fragmented, not integrated, no visibility. But the next level is defined level where you have at least supply chain organization correctly defined. and processes are clearly defined, roles and responsibilities are defined. But the next level is called foundation level, where supply chain strategy is fully aligned to the company business strategy. There is collaboration between the company stakeholders. There is integrated planning like SNOP. Then there are KPIs identified for continuous improvement. Only at these two stages, although your roles are defined clearly, processes are there, you haven't really looked at performance measures. So here, at least you start to track the performance measures. But finally, advanced supply chains, you have supply chain agility and adaptability also built into the supply chain, right? And there is not only internally, external collaboration. That's where the supply chain control tower, all of that come into place, because all the stakeholders outside of your organization who's part of your supply chain has to be connected. So external collaboration has to be there. Otherwise, you can't manage the supply chain in nowadays. And you have enterprise-wide KPI alignment within the organization and also, where possible, with your outsiders. And obviously, then it will have an improved business performance, right? So this is the importance of performance measures. If you don't have performance measures, you don't know where you're moving. You need to really get into a understanding on how do I really improve my business performance through alignment with my supply chain strategy, and that will help you to achieve your targets. Right. Finally, we'll look at the video. We are finishing a bit early. I wanted to do that exercise, but since you all already have done balance scorecard, but watch this video. Don't bat an eyelid. You will miss out some things. Let's look at the Formula One pit stop.
But Holland comes in for a pit stop. Time to refuel and change tires. Lou Moore himself changes the tires. Only 4 crew members, including the driver, are allowed to work on the car. It's a tense time. Holland stays in his seat, anxious to get away. Let's watch. The tires are changed at last. A crewman polishes the windshield as Holland moves away just 67 seconds after he stops.
Look at now. This was about 10 years ago. 10 years. So what actually, how has the performance increased from that time to this time, right? What are the key things that change the way that the pit stop from 53 seconds to, I don't know, maybe 6 seconds or whatever? What was the real, not really automation? I mean, yes. And also even the clothing that they were wearing, you know, something so shaggy and all, like jumping on top of the thing. You know, I mean, when one person is doing, others are just watching. But here, everybody was like focusing on improving whatever their own thing that they are doing. Division of labor, yes. And also technology, yes, not fully automated, but technology, the equipment, enhancement, all that is there. But everybody was fully aligned. The main job was quickly taking this out of the pit stop to the racetrack. So the alignment is very, very important. I mean, if you really look, actually, this is what is being used in the factory environment called SMED technique, single minute exchange of dies. With how quickly you can change over in a factory is classic copy of this pit stop. There are a lot of things you can copy from a different industry and implement here. So because if you want to quickly change over and do it faster, you actually get a lot of capacity, in from the line rather than. Now I remember in our toothpaste line, I mean, many years ago, as I joined the company, it took about, to change from one flavor to another, it took about 12 hours. When we started implementing, because you had to remove the pieces, wash it and all of that, you have GMP standards and all of that. So many guidelines are there. And then we changed over to TPM. We started implementing total productive maintenance and all of that. TPM techniques were used and all of that. It actually was brought down to 15 minutes. Just imagine the capacity that you would have got it. So like that, if you carefully lean management and all of that is all about this. Really do value stream mapping. I think Dr. Takuntala will do that. So value stream mapping, and then you really look at what is non-value adding and remove it. You have multi-skilled people in the factory line. Earlier, engineering people will have to come and do the machine changeovers, and the operators are waiting until they do it. So you make them multi-skilled, certain things they can do it. If it's a big thing, you bring somebody else from outside to do that, from engineering department. So like that, you have to carefully look at, break the whole process into small pieces to understand what can be improved. So this is a classic example over the years. I don't know, I read somewhere. I couldn't get a very recent one in the pit stop. There's no video like that. If you come across, please share with me. But they say now in future, they will do dynamical wheel changeover while it is being moved. I don't know how practically it can be done. I don't know, maybe they are going somebody a jakrangala magnetized I don't know. So that's what they are saying. It will happen in time to come. So world is changing. What I wanted to show you is the alignment has to be there. World is changing, but still the human intervention is there. But you need to carefully, human beings will have to check and understand what is it that you can improve. Even if you have robots, you have collaborative robots. Humans and robots are working together in factories. Cobots, they call it. So you need to understand your job will not go away just because a lot of people think, oh, with artificial intelligence, all of that, machine learning, we will lose our jobs. No, you won't lose the job, but if you know how to manage in this environment, you will not. So they say those who know artificial intelligence versus those who don't know artificial intelligence will determine whether you have a job or not. If you don't know what's happening, obviously you lose your job. But if you know what to do and acquire the new knowledge, unlearn and relearn, you will have a job. So even to manage robots, you need people and do optimization work. So therefore, acquire new skills. Remember, at the beginning, I said T versus V, T-shaped. So become a T if you're not a T yet, but otherwise, keep expanding. There are lots of resources available now, MOOCs, Coursera, Khan Academy, Udemy. Lots of things you can learn online, free from top universities. So if you learn, if you love to learn, and if you want to be up to date of what's happening, you can still acquire new knowledge. I mean, I am lazy to read books, but I at least read few articles on a daily basis. Otherwise, I can't be up to date and teaching you all. Otherwise, I'll talk about all things I don't think which will be appealing to you. So I'll try my best to be current so that you all know what's happening and it's helping you. So I hope you will also get into that habit. At least watch news, BBC, CNN, at least they talk about certain things and what's happening around us. So thank you very much. I hope you guys gained out of the last 3 sessions that I did. Some of you looked a bit lost in the class from the body language I learned. I picked up, but I hope if you have any unclear area or any clarifications, you can always reach out to me. I think my email and mobile number is here, and also my LinkedIn. So I post a lot of things relevant to the areas of my interest to LinkedIn. So if you can get into the network, you can also be up to date with what's happening. So I keep posting. So I come back again in the last session with Dr. Travis. We bring in 2 resource personnel, and next week and the week after, it will be Dr. Sakuntala, I think. Okay, so all the best.